Hi, Dark and Stormy. This is Edwin Hill, author of The Secrets We Share, and I just wanted to congratulate you on your 200th episode. You guys are amazing, and I have been so grateful for the support that you've offered me and so many other authors over these past 200 episodes. Thank you again.
Hi, Ellen Byron / Maria DeRico here, wishing the Dark and Stormy Book Club a very happy 200th episode. You're almost as old as me by now. Congratulations, and looking forward to many, many more of them.
Hello and welcome. It's finally here, our 200th episode, girls.
Yay! 200!
We're thrilled that Kathy has joined us. She, of course, has been off getting edumacated. She's back with us for the episode, and we're thrilled.
It's been a long time since the three of us, even though we're not together, we're recording together.
It has been a long time. I'm so happy to be back with you girls.
We're glad to have you. Before we get started with the main content of our program, we want to be sure and express our love and thanks to our wonderful patrons, Cynthia,
Tammy,
Art,
Liz,
and Terry.
We can't forget our latest patron, Jackie Flom. She is a friend of the show in many ways. She's now our newest patron, and we interviewed her in March of last year about her wonderful book, Justice Tomorrow. Go check it out.
We are so grateful for your support, just to know that you love us.
and we love you back. What we're going to do today is we are going to go through some of our very favorite guests.
A walk down memory lane.
And to start off, we're going to do our very first In Agatha's Footsteps.
When we first started the podcast, we talked about doing author interviews. We had a wish list of authors we wanted to include in the show, and the first one we both came up with was Alan Bradley. And we thought, oh, we'll never get him. And he said yes. So this is a clip from September 15th, 2018, of Alan discussing how Flavia DeLuce got her name.
I finally had an opportunity to sit down when I was about 68 or 69. I was preoccupied with other things. I started writing what I think of as my Alan Bradley mystery, and I got into it about a chapter or so. A girl wandered onto the page and into the story without my permission. I had never conceived of her. And in fact, I didn't know who she was. She just appeared on the page and virtually hijacked the book. As I've said many times, it was a strange time for me because I didn't know what her name was. And if you don't know someone's name, you can't write a book about them. So we started off with quite a lengthy period with me trying to guess her name. And I would go out walking in the morning and just pull names out of a hat. Is your name Margaret DeMarchon or something? And in my mind, this little girl, this Flavia, she wouldn't speak. She would just roll her eyes up to heaven and go. And I think, I don't know how many thousand names I guessed in my walks, but one day I said, is your name Flavia DeLuce? And there was just a long and ominous silence, and I ran home, and I told this story before, obviously, but I said it was like guessing Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh, great.
I had to get my fingers on the keyboard right away, and I started writing, and Flavia just came through. She said it was as black in the closet as old blood, and I had no idea who she was or where she lived, what she was talking about, but as I was typing, I realized that if I was really quiet and just huddled in the corner and didn't say anything and didn't inject any of myself, she would reveal herself, not to me, but to the reader that she had in mind. I was just sort of an intermediary. I was like a piece of conduit, I think, between Flavia and the world. And she came pouring through, and here we are 10 books later.
This extract comes from Victoria Thompson. She was our second In Agatha's Footsteps author. Her episode came out on October 15th, 2018. She explains how she researches for her novels.
A lot of people say I couldn't write a historical because I wouldn't enjoy the research. That, to me, is the fun part, is the research. When I first started, I was poor and I couldn't afford to buy books, so I would go to the library. I spent a lot of time in the library checking out books and finding books. And since I've become more successful now, I buy them, and I have a huge reference library here now of books. And luckily, my time period is recent enough that there are a lot of photographs of that time period. Looking at a photograph is like so much easier than you can read pages and pages of text and not get as much detail as if you look at one photograph and you can see what people are wearing, what kind of furniture's in the room, what the decor looks like, what the city street look like, who's walking and what they're wearing and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really makes it a lot easier to see a photograph. So I'm very fortunate there that I have photographs to look at, but I have just a lot of books. And the way I research, and in fact, I'm doing that this week as we speak, is I'll sit down and with it being a series, both of my series are series, and so I know pretty much the time period that the next book's going to be set. So I just sit down and start reading what was going on in the world, and especially in New York City during that time period. And when I get to something that makes me say, oh, I didn't know that, then I know that's what's going in the book.
One of my favorite authors is the wonderful Anne Hillerman. She joined us on May 14th, 2019 on episode 61. She told us about continuing her father's work.
My dad died right before that book came out. So then my husband and I went on a book tour. This is a long answer to your question. It sort of speaks to my evolution as a writer. Anyway, Don and I were on this book tour and we're talking about our book. And then, like you do on book tours, I would say, okay, does anybody have any questions? And inevitably someone would say, so, are there going to be any more Jim Chee, Joe Leaphorn books? You know, did your dad have anything at the printer, anything almost ready to come out? And I would have to say, no, sorry, he didn't. And then the person who asked that question, they would say, oh, I'm heartbroken. I love those characters. They were like part of my family. So all the time that I'm kind of getting over the loss of my dad, I'm hearing people say how much they're missing his stories. And at one point, it dawned on me that I was just like them, and I was really missing those stories too.
When we started this podcast, the thought of having somebody like Reese Bowen come on our show was but a dream. But then, March 19th of 2019, our dream came true. Here's a clip of Reese telling us about how she selected her location for her very first mystery novel.
And then I grew up in England in genteel suburbia. And so then I thought about my childhood in Wales when I'd spent time with my aunt and great aunt in Wales in the mountains near Snowdonia. And that was just such a unique place that I set my first mystery series, the Constable Evans mysteries, there. So then it's all gone on from there.
This excerpt is from our interview with Nevada Barr, who was our 10th In Agatha's Footsteps author, and her episode was from November 11th, 2019. And she explains how she discovered the heroine of her Anna Pigeon mystery series.
She is based on me, or was. I was working as a backcountry ranger in Guadalupe Mountains National Park. I was alone a lot because a backcountry ranger is alone a lot. And I was tracking lions. And this story came to me. And so I wrote the first one. And I'd never been a big mystery reader, and I didn't write it to be a series. Then it got published and was doing well, and they asked me to write a second one. And then I realized I had, by dumb luck, stumbled into the perfect series setup.
Susan Elia McNeil visited us on episode 68 on July 2nd, 2019, and she explained how the Muppets helped her find Maggie Hope.
Maggie sprang out of nowhere I have to thank the Jim Henson Muppets, actually, as crazy as that sounds. I was a writer and magazine editor in New York City, and I was writing about 20-something women in present-day New York City, which is what I was at the time. My husband, who worked as a puppeteer for the Jim Henson Company, got the role of Bear in the Big Blue House, which aired on Disney Channel. It was really, really popular in the UK, and so we went one summer, I think it was in 1999, to London. We spent 2 months there. So we were there, and friends of ours very kindly brought me a copy of Time Out London. Our friend James turned to a page where there's a tiny little ad for the cabinet war rooms. They weren't the Churchill war rooms then. It wasn't as popular as it is now. And he said, despite what you Yanks might think, World War II didn't begin with Pearl Harbor. You might want to check out this museum. So I took it as a challenge, and the next day I went to the museum, and it was an experience that really transformed my life.
We are always starstruck when we get to interview an author that we've admired for years, and never more so than when we interviewed Tess Gerritsen. In this clip from January 19th, 2019, Tess explains how she keeps her writing fresh.
Well, the way to keep it fresh is to just continually be interested in what's going on around, to be curious. I think my ideas come, as you can see, from all kinds of crazy places, whether it's A Nightmare in Venice or looking at paintings in Italy or reading about Mary Shelley's mother. I just go through my day and I'll see something and I'll be reading something and I'll just think, oh my God, that's a story. How do I turn this into a story? So you have to always be aware that stories are everywhere. The other thing that really, I think, helps me is I travel a lot. I love to travel. I'm a lifelong tourist, and I find that when I'm in an unfamiliar environment, I'm taking in things. Sometimes stories pop out of that. I find Italy an unending source of inspiration, and I think I've also picked up stories. Just for instance, traveling on book tour, I remember there was one night I landed very late at an airport and they sent a car and driver to pick me up. I got into the car, and as he's driving me to my hotel, it suddenly occurred to me, I have no idea who this man is. But he's not the person who's actually supposed to pick me up. What if I got into the wrong car? And so that became a book right there. It's just really paying attention to the things that freak you out, because the things that freak you out are the things that make good stories.
This selection is from our interview with Marcia Clark. This was episode 106 from March 23rd, 2020. Marcia explains that she writes her 2 different series from 2 different angles. Her Rachel Knight series is written from a prosecutor's point of view, and the Samantha Brinkman series is from a defense attorney's point of view.
I started by writing Rachel Knight series, which was about a prosecutor who was in the special trials unit, which is what I did because it was my first foray into novel writing, and they say, write what you know, so I wrote that. And then after the 4th Rachel Knight book, I thought, what I really want to do is go back to my roots, because I started as a defense attorney, and then I went back to defense work again to handle criminal appeals. So I thought, I'd like to try the other side of things, and I wanted to try a wilder character, somebody who was much more likely to swing for the fences and step over the line and do things that Rachel Knight could never do, would never do. So kind of explore the other side of things.
The wonderful Hank Philippi Ryan was on the program twice. She was on the program November 15th, 2018, episode 34, and then again on episode 75 on August 15th, 2019. And she explains what makes a good mystery, how she knows a book is finished, and then she makes us blush.
The story has to have a beginning, middle, and end. It has to have a character who you care about. It needs an important problem that needs to be solved. You're tracking down clues and following leads. You want the good guys to win and the bad guys to get what's coming to them. And in the end, you want to change the world a little bit, and you want to get some justice. So when you're watching my stories on TV, I don't want you to change the channel. And when you're reading my thrillers, I want you to sort of miss your stop on the subway because you just want to read one more page. And so that rhythm, that music, that advancing the story skill of television reporting, I think has really informed my writing. I don't want you to be distracted. I want you to be so focused and riveted and compelled in a book like Trust Me. When you say you couldn't put it down, that's what I want to hear from readers. It's a joy to do, and it's very difficult to do. I mean, we can talk about the process later. When I finish my books, I know they're finished because I have sort of tears in my eyes of satisfaction and completion, and that there's a story that I have created that people care about, and that feeling when you walk out of a movie and you say, oh, I'm glad I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want you to say, oh, I'm glad